I never I never really wrote on my site about science much. I started with economics and politics. But I had a nose for a scandal and enjoyed that sort of thing. And didn't the stuff that really didn't seem likely, it turned out to be true, was the most interesting. This is way before conspiracy kind of mainstream. I'm not a scientist. I don't have any uh, tertiary qualifications in any hard sciences. But I'm putting some like way out there stuff. It seems to most people that sounds like. I don't know whether it would sound arrogant or just you know just absurd. But I didn't get there from knowing my chops in science. I got there from understanding how public funding works and how the sharks basically encircled the carcass, and they have set up all establishments basically work the same. And once the institutions of those establishments are established, defending the status quo becomes critical. So they don't share knowledge, they don't share money or funding. They monopolize public funding. And just because it's science, which is supposed to be objective, doesn't mean that the people and the establishment are now going to change. No, it is now required that they will then abandon the scientific method, and this is what they actually are starting to actually admit to, by the way. And they will then build up a educational, because you've got to, just like in politics, you have a lobby group, or with any special interest group, you will have a set of people that are basically there to persuade, to put you into a position where the purse strings are controlled by you, so that you can make sure that your nepotism remains as it is, and some other lot doesn't come in and get to your pot of gold. And we, the taxpayers, of course, just a bunch of chumps sitting there waiting to be exploited and plundered. Which is, why I think we really should take a lot more interest in this, and we should demand oversight. The oversight structure should be brought back, and accountability should be brought back. The spending is, and this isn't deficit spending. This is like discretionary spending. This is just budgeted for science research. The military is another one. They have a monopoly on public spending there, and it's, that's far worse. That's death and destruction, and they're literally making the world a terrible place. So, this isn't quite there, but science and technology, this is where innovation comes through. Society would be a better place because of focusing on the right things and knowingly committing fraud and setting humanity back because you want to enrich yourself. I'm sorry, it's and too much advice is given to be respectful to the sciences. This is the best science we have. We approach it differently or whatnot, but it is not producing results. We're not getting any advancing any issues. All we're doing is creating tribes and teams and division. And I think honestly, the time for respect and showing the appropriate protocol and etiquette is gone. I think the time for demanding and talking to people like they are imposters and that they don't belong in the positions that they're in has come. Otherwise, we're never going to get anywhere, trust me. So you can reverse engineer it. And once you see the same institutions, the same patterns, and the same mechanisms, you can establish who the special interests are, how it works, what their agenda is, how they hope to achieve it, and where they probably are likely to, what critical areas of discourse cannot be allowed to manifest or to surface. And it's a lot easier than having an advanced knowledge in all the sciences. Stuff I put out here, I'm not sitting in a lab working this stuff out. Who the fuck am I to put that out there? I simply have to recognize it, and it's so easy. And if you're somebody out there who thinks that it's beyond you, or you doubt your ability to grasp it or what, don't for a second think that it's any of it's beyond common sense. You may have to process some of it to understand the next level, but you don't have to go beyond the point of common sense and intuition, because it gets boring after that. And you don't want to go into hard technical calculation knowledge and understanding equations and whatnot, because it doesn't really, not necessarily going to help you understand anything in principle. People have been studying Standard Model for how long? Doing equations about the age of the universe. And in 1999, they began discovering magnetic fields everywhere. They didn't add them into the Friedman equations. So, I mean, they knew they were there. But why wouldn't they be interested? Because, I mean, how can they be there, according to what their theory predicts, caused by nothing and causing nothing? So, I mean, it obviously violates the fundamentals of physics. But it didn't bother them. And the particle colliders that crosses over the massive proton, whatever, no one really cared. They just carried on doing experiments and whatnot, you know. And how can you do the experiments when you doubt one of the fundamentals? And little things like that will tell you that, of course they know. They know, typically, especially the better guys. The guys getting Nobel Prizes, I mean, they create Nobel Prizes, not to give to a president for peace or a physicist for discovering physics. They give it to people to hide. It's like the news. I mean, mainstream news is there to prevent news from coming out. It's not there to give you news. You know, in 2023, if you're naive to the point of stupidity, if this is what you believe, then you must go and believe that wars are fought for freedom and democracy. You know what I'm saying? So it's no different. I mean, it's not nice to understand that the world works that way, but it's the first step to changing it. You know, I'm not saying go out and change the world, but just this understanding being put out there will change the world. That will be the incidental sort of de facto consequence of it. It's an emergent quality that society has. We're too busy to go and be an activist, you know. I mean, who can do that in their life? But it'll be a consequence. It'll be general tolerance. These things happen very differently in sociology than they do on an individual level. Now, so they know this, knowing fraud. Okay, known fraud. The models don't matter. Everyone just does it. They're so specialized. They just do what they need to do, and it goes on. Okay. Now, it's all common sense. It's all out there. It's all available. Whole cottage industries have popped up. Papers are published, not necessarily in the biggest journals, because that's where the big lies are. But it's not just climate change, you know, which people now accept, and they're beginning to understand where motive could lie there. It's not just the big pharma with vaccines and mandates, and you can see how, you know, it always comes down to money and control and power. And it's not just, you know, military technology or, you know, that sort of thing. You know, it can be cosmology too, electrically or electrodynamically. Going back to Tesla, you had suppression of certain technologies, and which I think is quite interesting, because, you know, in the secret space program, it's, you know, the word on the street is that there's a lot of plasma cosmology used, which isn't even mentioned. It's not even debated in the mainstream, because Eric Lerner, which I mentioned earlier, is a plasma cosmologist. You know, Electric Universe uses plasma cosmology. A lot of the it's well integrated into a lot of other say schools of thought. Okay, but I mean, there's good examples and bad examples of all of those, but the best of them surely are interesting. They're sound. They're build a world made with known physics that have been observed, made in laboratories, are reproducible, don't need supernatural new physics to explain everything, can explain everything just on known physics. In cosmology, you don't account for 4.6% of the universe, you account for 100% of the universe. And no new physics is required. Proven physics going back practically to the time of Newton, or rather say Tesla, can explain the whole universe, you know. And you don't need dark matter, or there's no need for it. It's not that you found it or whatnot. You don't need all the assumptions that this is created by gravity and that's created by this, and there's only one force in the universe that's gravity or whatnot. I mean, what a stupid assumption, that the weakest force would craft the universe. That all the dynamics and morphology we see out there, it's all as a result of the weakest force, and not just the weakest force. It's almost inconsequential. It's like a little insect on the top of a pond. Water surface tension may seem like even more pathetic and just not even worthy for us of actually considering. But gravity is irrelevant for that little insect, and the surface tension of that pond is the dominant force in its life, calling it a force in the, in the colloquial sense. So it's all a question of scale. We're sitting on a massive rock, huge multi-trillion ton rock, in an orbital solar system, where the density of matter is uniquely positioned that we would myopically think that sure, gravity is an important force. But if I come and take a little child's magnet and ball bearing is on the floor, and I go and put it there, and it's ball bearing, that little tiny magnet will easily defeat the whole entire mass of the Earth, the gravity of the Earth, that little magnetic force, because it's billions and trillions and trillions and trillions of times stronger than gravity, the electromagnetic force, and that's considered weak compared to the nuclear forces. So I mean, it's like a wisp. Gravity is when you get to a galaxy, it plays no role, none whatsoever. And we should know this because a complex spiral galaxy, which looks like a system and shoots out these jets from the middle. It doesn't bear any resemblance to a solar system with planets revolving around a sun. So why would we think that it does? Complex spiral arm system like that? No, it doesn't seem likely. Not forming orbs and spheres. The cosmic web doesn't look like circles and orbital systems, So why does it have to be gravity? As it turns out, the rotation curve is completely wrong. Stars are way too far apart, like it's grains of sand that are miles apart. I mean, gravity doesn't. The reach of gravity does not extend that far. So we know it's not gravity. You can't assume that it must be gravity. Then why do a test? Why even look? And you find that you're missing 80%? Well, then you're wrong. Well, can't be gravity, right? That's what I would think. No, it is gravity, just 90% of it's invisible. I mean, what the fuck? How's that science? Then you measure the magnetic fields. You don't get. Let's talk about gas in space. I mean, there's radiation everywhere. It's ionizing. It ionizes all the. It's all plasma, which carries charge. So. They're still going about no electricity in space. They still do it. It doesn't matter that the sun streams particles. It's moving charge. There it is. Case closed. But they measure the magnetic fields. Since 1999, they've been measuring these fields. They know that they're there. I mean, that's interesting apart from anything else. Even if they ignore it, how do we miss it? How are they frozen into what? That's not it's not an iron magnet. It's dense. You can't. Even that is. That's remnant magnetism, and eventually it's lost. We can track it in the rocks, orientate the Earth's polarity. So you always need electric current to have a magnetic field. There's nonsense that magnetism is caused by all these collisions and stars and nuclear this and that or whatnot. Is garbage. Everything, X-rays, gamma rays, all that stuff. We make it all with, whether it's an electrical microwave oven or an X-ray machine. We plug it all into the wall. That's the only way we know how to do it, how to make it. So this is all speculation. These cosmic monsters that are of brightnesses and sizes that are just basically just pushing the boundaries of metaphysics, that are basically sorcery at this point. I mean, if it's not invisible, it's collapsing stars. You know, you've got they're telling you that the gravity is overcoming the electric force between the electrons and the protons, even though their very model itself has got which I don't agree with, but let's cite what is established. They have these particles are considered monopoles, electric monopoles. You know, where the one's positive and even though everything's dipole nature. But anyway, let's go with it. And their very model would require, if it was if the force between them was a smooth potential gradient, the closer you push it, the stronger the repulsion would be. If it was like in chemistry where you have these valencies for the electrons, or it was discrete steps of quanta, the point is it would the repulsion would increase as you try and push the two together. So the more gravity you got, as it is, you would need trillions of protons within the actual atom to overcome the electric force, because it's so inconsequential in strength. You can't collapse to a pulsar where, because of these flashes, you've got 1 teaspoon weighs as much as Mount Everest would weigh on Earth, and the star spins around at the speed of a dentist drill, with these beams, by pure coincidence, constantly aligning with our line of sight, and spins so fast that matter would just simply go flying apart. No matter could withstand those kind of forces. I mean, it takes 24 hours for our day to happen, not to 0.0001 of a second for the entire. So they invent neutronium, so that it explains how the density of the star can hold together, and it's this physical monstrosity in space that's just like a lighthouse. I mean, do you really think that such things exist? If you can simply explain it as a strobe star in its plasma environment. It's a relaxation oscillating circuit. In fact, there's a variety of different explanations. And like a strobe light, I mean, it doesn't violate every law of physics. It's much easier to explain without all this mechanical chicanery involved to come up with these things. Then you want to go further, black holes. Black holes. To the point where you've got a fucking singularity point center of infinite mass, or at least infinite infinite curvature of space-time. Nogal. So, infinite curvature of something where there's no evidence for it, that cannot be falsified, that in its very example uses gravity itself to explain gravity. So it's useless. It's of no use whatsoever. And the four coordinate system, the 3 spatial dimensions in time, that's called a rendezvous. You don't need Einstein for that. So that's nothing new. Explains nothing. There's no. That's not our best science. That's not good science. That's pseudoscience, right? You can't replace gravity that has direct evidence. You take direct measurements. I go on my scale and weigh myself. Don't get a reading in degrees. It's in kilograms. Mutual attraction is a pretty good direct evidence, I'd say. Why would you? That's the gold standard in science. Why would anybody abandon that? And they're all these talking heads will go on about curved space-time. Why? How's it geometry is concept? How's it going to influence matter and inertia, momentum? Through what mechanism? How's it going to tell matter how to do anything? They don't even put something. They don't even propose anything. There's no mechanism put forward. So it doesn't make any sense why they would call that our best science, unless you realize that actually that's pseudoscience, because it is pseudoscience. All you got to do, go look up the meaning of pseudoscience and then go look at it, make your own decision. Nobody pushes back. Nobody says, that's not our best science, this is not good science, this is terrible science. Then you look at all the other things, multiple spatial dimensions. I mean, What's all that about? Because mathematical degrees of freedom. Tiny little dimension. It's curved up. Bullshit. It's got nothing to do with scale. There's 3 axes. There are 3. That's a 3 coordinate system, and its scale is irrelevant. What are they talking about? 21 string theory. Come on. Nothing real is in 1 or 2 dimensions. It doesn't make 4 spatial dimensions. Doesn't make sense. It's not even. It's a nonsense concept. It's not scientifically valid. It could do math on a piece of paper. Whoop-de-doop. Making all these things real. And just because you specialize and you trained or whatnot doesn't make it real. Everybody knows this, but you forget. All you got to do is think about it for 5 seconds. You don't have to be qualified. You don't need a piece of paper or degree. Just trust yourself. You're going to find out that all those intuitions that you've been putting aside are going to come back to haunt you, and you're going to have been right when you doubted and when you were skeptical. So, because it's so absurd what they're putting out there, and I could kick myself for having bought it for all those years. Really. And it's actually infuriating to see how they snuff out all the interesting stuff that doesn't get funded. These guys are coming up with, they are, Einstein. Everything comes down to Einstein or quantum. Go on about that forever. It's not electrodynamics and chemistry and thermodynamics and classical physics and all that. And this is what built the world. This is why we are what we are. Don't conflate that with theoretical crap physics. Because none of that stuff. Quantum mechanics hasn't built anything. A quantum computer is not run on fucking Heisenberg's uncertainty principle. It's not entangled particles that's powering it. It's not. Best you could say quantum style. It's a processing unit with Boolean logic, and it plugs into a wall. It's electric. It's powered by. It may have ones and zeros, and it may have a variable. So it may have a quantum style, but they can call it quantum type computing or whatever. Don't call it quantum computing and quantum this and quantum that, now that we know that the legacy of quantum is all based on bullshit. It's not the most accurate science. There's no model. It's all statistical. So everything's got to have structure. It's all got to have a morphology. It's all got to have certain dynamics. It should be able to be quantified. If we get it wrong, like we probably have with particles, which can still be very useful. Just come up with something that you can apply, not just the probabilities. Most of it was reverse engineered from certain things that were known anyway, and the rest of it's all fraud. Go and do some research. If you haven't done the research in the last 10 years, go and do the research, because the whole thing's a house of cards, and this is why it's essentially useless. All the best minds supposedly are going into quantum this and quantum that, and it's all useless. Same as relativity. It's all a bunch of crap. Orbit of Mercury they keep talking about. Whoop-de-doop. There's 10 explanations for that. It's not unique, and it's not even that good an explanation. In any case, Eddington had 2. The whole thing's crap. Okay, time doesn't dilate. It's not a thing. You can't. Nothing can act on time. Okay, time is just a consequence of matter moving at different velocities. Move at a faster velocity over a different distance, and it'll take a different amount of time or whatever. It's an emergent property of matter. So it's not a thing. It's not stuff you can dilate or slow down, or now even information can't move faster than light, and it's the speed limit of the universe. What a lot of crap! If you can't take 2 atoms and have them approach each other at double the speed of light, and instantly the universe has to know to dilate time, it must. Otherwise, they'll approach each other at twice the speed of light. You've got a problem on your hands. So they must the second they approach each other, they have to know. So every single time they do that, the universe must send information out immediately, instantly, to prevent matter with mass exceeding the speed of light, c. So I mean, it's a fundamental problem. Oh, nothing can get infinite energy. Yeah, but your black hole's got an infinite in the center of its point singularity. According to Einstein's own matter equivalency principle, infinite mass and energy. It's his equivalency fucking principle, So there's your infinite energy. It's not impossible. So special relativity violates general relativity, and on and on and on and on it goes. It's riddled with contradictions, and which twin gets older? How do you manage? How do you measure the energy of a moving body? These things are unresolvable. There are all kinds of solutions. No engineering based on that either. Like I said before, not GPS, please. And people still don't know this. I still have college professors telling me this. Unbelievable. No, you don't get things that don't exist. You can't make engineering based on bullshit. And you'll never get engineering based on these things. Never. You'll never get it. I'm telling you here today. I swear to Christ. It will never happen because it's not valid. How many things are based on electromagnetism or electricity or the internal combustion engine, or mechanics and leverage and those principles? Jeez, everything, and there's billions of examples of the science being proven over and over again. You don't need some internal clique at a massive engineering project to tell you otherwise. Now, this is the thing. There would be no funding for those projects if people didn't believe, So all around you, you're hearing about these big sciences. And what do you know? They're a load of bullshit. Don't you think that that's an extraordinary waste? So this is science. This is the reality of it. Everything, it's all crap. Redshift, expanding universe, the Big Bang. It sounds amazing. I know. It blows the mind. Blows the mind when you first learn about it. But then you find out that these are not mysteries. They're very simple to explain. Most of the answers are already gotten. You've got all the best engineers being sucked up and used up by, you got look at the JPL, Jet Propulsion Lab. NASA's monopolized that crowd. Such good engineers. Chasing ghosts. Looking for the beginning of the universe. James Webb Space Telescope. It never finds anything, but they question the Big Bang, the creation miracle that they did. Give us one miracle, we'll math the rest. I told you I shit the maths anyway. The Friedman equations are, and then they're adding this and adding inflation and whatever. They just suck it out of their thumb. Dark matter, dark energy, this, redshift is not commensurate with the recessional velocity 1-to-1 ratio. This bullshit that was falsified. Hubble himself wasn't sold on it anyway. So these are not known, not because the science hasn't been done and the records aren't available. Go through my site, explore it. I promise you, go to the sources and citations page. There's everything I'm putting down here, as nutcase as it sounds, is all not only true or speculated based on sound principles, because I try and come up with something, even if I don't really know. I'll have a guess. I hope that people don't use that against me. But mostly I'll say I don't know where I don't know. But it's not, people say you have to come up with an answer where, just put something down, Rubbish. Why would that be the case? No, you simply establish that it's false. Simple. That's not even debatable. But these are not interesting discussions because we link our identity to a lot of these principles, especially when you get quite knowledgeable about it. It's a huge waste of time. This is also why I got angry, because I wasted so much time on trying to understand things, and it just never made sense. Never made sense. And then one day, after squabbling a little bit with a couple of people and reading the internet with a more open mind, I actually thought, let me actually go down a couple of these avenues, and knowing what I knew about the public funding debacle, suddenly everything just fits into place. And mostly we know what's going on, and we have a pretty good idea. We need that public funding to be able to go and actually do the final research. And if we do, we're going to come up with meaningful, useful science. It's actually going to advance humanity. And these monopolies that are formed, it's nepotism, it's strangling society. It can't last. It's unhealthy and it can't last. We will get proper results. We're not going to. We're not going to come up with gravitational waves and measure perturbation in a quarter the width of a proton from a black hole that's, I don't know how many thousands of light years away through the galactic noise at a signal to noise ratio of 2,000 to 1 through a interferometer and 4 kilometers. It just doesn't take into account the interference from any seismic factors or atmosphere, quarter the width of a proton, And all these scientists put like 80 names on that paper or whatnot, And we're never going to resolve that kind of resolution in anything, ever. We'll never, ever achieve that. No civilization in the universe ever will. It can't be done, because of the spiraling collisions between the black holes. What lost about a quarter of a second. Mergers of black holes and on the face of it. It's not going to last a quarter of a second. It's over. And no residual noise afterwards. No. Give me a break. It's not. It's not science. That's not science. But we're conditioned to overlook all this crap and have a universe that it cannot cost $1 trillion to lose 96% of the universe. It simply cannot cost that much to go so far back, and it doesn't. Now, if we could get the funding, we would actually make useful progress, and we wouldn't be invited to marvel at the how unpredictable the universe is, and no one expected this and no one expected that. I've been reading the no ones, what they have to say or what not, and it's a load of crap. Because lots of people expected precisely those things. It's just these yobbos who are in charge of it. They never saw it coming, or they're very good liars. Very impressive liars, I must say. But a lot of them, I think at that level, seem genuinely surprised. The poor fools. And they're specialists, It must be so humiliating when it comes out. But it must be very difficult to go back now. But the real science, the models you'll read about on our site, are not really debated that much. They're subject to debunking videos and things like that. By these total arseholes, actually. These parroted, and then they come up with all this crap, all this magic, all this sorcery that they explains nothing. And everything's a layer upon layer of mystery or whatnot. And then they arrogantly will look down on. Maxwell's equations or something. It's basically infallible. It's been tested to the point of, what are you doing? Coming with your wormhole shit with and casting dispersion on something that all around you is ubiquitous, and its workings. They've gone right back to the ancient Greeks when they never did experiments, and they had the epicycles models of the solar system, and it was considered almost boorish to do experiments. The few that did, and it was all done in their heads, and this was considered like a higher art form. Well, then came Copernicus and Galileo, and they challenged the institutions that the establishment was a church at the time, and by using establishing falsifiable, evidence-based theories that could actually predict and match observation, and actually produce things. And that was a lot of value has been placed in that in science. Before the age of consensus science, where these establishments all would use votes and voting to keep a hold on things. And now consensus science is the most important thing, definitely with climate change. It's really pushed. And the scientific method is, well, there's no scientific method really in theoretical physics. And, they'll tell you. They'll admit it half the time. And you can't go and reproduce the experiments done at Event Horizon or LIGO or whatnot. They imaged a black hole, and, except they didn't image a black hole. They put 63,000 synthetic images, coughed out by what the model anticipates. They just say shit like that. So it's amazing. All you got to do is just take a little peek behind the curtain, and you realize that all of it is all those assumptions that you make. That, it must be a color enhanced image of this, that, or whatnot. Not a synthetic image based on so much data loaded in that you realize, well, somebody's definitely overcompensating here, because it's just simply not necessary to have terabytes of data to reproduce this torus, which is not what they predicted when they first established this black hole jets happened. It didn't predict magnetic fields, whatnot, but of course the plasma magnetic entities that do emit dipole jets when they reach critical capacitance, the galactic circuit at the heart, and they do, and it does negate the need for dark matter by having all this gas, which is, of course, ionized and facilitates the movement of charge. It's going to produce these magnetic fields that they've been picking up since '99, and that they just ignored. But that draws the plasma, all the radiation in space is ionizing radiation. They talk about gas the whole time, but it's ionizes and moving charge through plasma. And ask somebody working on a tokamak or any nuclear plasma fusion research. They know that the plasmas, once you pass low pressure gases, once you pass charge through them, that the magnetic fields that form become self-organizing. They produce filaments and Birkeland currents in space. Now these Birkeland currents are what it is the galaxy. The spiral arms basically consist of those, and they very neatly pinch off little stars where they have instabilities, and these galactic circuits do hit a capacitance, and these dipole jets do go up, electrons one way, ions and protons the other way, and it makes sense. And they make them in labs all the time. Again, known science. Not a black hole. And then they don't predict the jets, and they add it on. Oh, it's an accretion disk. So somehow sucks the accretion up and right to the top, and then shoots something the relative size of a pea on the floor of the Earth. Shoots to basically halfway to the moon. A little spiral of sucked up gas that's going to come out in a long, thin beam, thousands of light years long, that stays, doesn't disperse into the vacuum of space. In the universe that's built on collisions and random kinetic forces, and no, it's a beam. That's why it's long and narrow. You know what I'm saying? Anyway, so that's a source of charge separation in the universe. You don't need a net charge. All you need is engines of charge separation, and it creates the conditions constantly where you have these these charge gradients, voltages. And the sun itself, charged particles come off it, and they're close to the sun, and they accelerate. It's not like with gravity when they come back. The further they get away beyond the orbit of Pluto, they're still accelerating, these charged particles, in the sun's field, produced by a thermonuclear fusion model, where the inside-out star, where the lightest thing is right in the core of it, where they say it's happening. The hydrogen's all at the core for some reason. Well, it doesn't sound right. Other models have the fusion happening in the photosphere, and it's low energy fusion as well, and it transmutates enough elements that you don't need first generation stars leaving over the gold. The second generation has to happen in a supernova. All this contrivance just disappears, and it permeates throughout from a particle to the far ends of the universe, and there's no contradictions. There's no intractable logical conflicts. It's all just simple, easy, and all the dead ends become new horizons. Now, that's simple, it's consistent and self-consistent, it's easy to explain on a few principles, and it's all known physics that work here on Earth. And we simply have to abandon the idea that only gravity and gravity alone is what made the universe, and that it's all, in order to be stable, obviously if you have a big bang, if everything's been thrown out, it's going to all want to come back in or go out. And you need all these extra factors and dark, to balance everything out. You've got Einstein with his cosmological constant, and the misinterpretations of redshift and the cosmic microwave background and the standard candles, and use the distance surface brightness ratios. You can use there's so many things that you can use, but we know that redshift is not a one-to-one indicator of rotational velocity. It doesn't mean that the universe is getting bigger. It may not even be expanding at all. The age of the universe, the size of is currently unknowable, and we just need to say this. Okay, we're not going to say 1/trillionth of a second after the Big Bang we know this. I mean, come on. The hubris is blows the mind. I mean, this is just unnecessary. I mean, here you are adding cosmic inflation, and you've got the crisis in cosmology puts various different means of working out the basics, the fundamentals of the universe out by orders of magnitude, multiple places zero. I mean, that's not a problem. That destroys it. That obliterates it. These are not technical difficulties here, but they just keep adding on shit. You don't notice it, but over the years, so these plasma models and models that have they haven't really changed. They haven't needed to, and they won't change. But like now, suddenly the lambda, the cold dark matter model, the concordance model, has now got all those things coming in. They even call it the magnetic universe, and like you can have a magnetic field without electric current. You don't get magnetic charge. You only get electric charge. So you've got to have a charge, a polarity, and there'll be direction of current flow. Once you have that, you've established orientation of the magnetic field too. It's not chicken versus the egg thing. It's electromagnetism. One before the other. One causes the other and orientates the other. So it's not gravitomagnetism, some shit like that. And this is physics 101. I mean, they go so far to avoid saying these things that it's got to be suspicious. I mean, it is so suspicious. But they can't afford to have these debates because what are they going to do? Argue against it? You can't argue against basic, sound, easy to understand, clear and transparent to most people physics. That any effort to sabotage it is going to expose an agenda. And I think people have an instinct. They like to avoid that. So you have to ignore it. You have to ignore it. And then you argue about shit like MOND and all these fundamentally based on the standard model versions of it, which are even more contrived to explain away the mysteries. Well, I don't know about you, but I'm tired of marveling at how marvelous place the universe is, and how we got just can't seem to ever understand it or whatnot. I mean, what a sucked up way of describing your failure and predictive success. I mean, they're so full of themselves. They aren't even embarrassed. I swear to God, they actually, some of them mean it. They go out there and they want you to share in their wonder and their awe. The fact that they didn't see it. Half of them don't even know that there's a whole bunch of people who said that exactly that was going to happen. I've spent years now listening to them and then watching it happen. And then hearing these idiots go, oh, nobody saw that coming. What are you talking about? Anybody who has any interest, who actually paid attention, knew that was going to happen. In fact, not one person, like thousands of people we're all having a discussion and not wondering if it's going to happen, but wondering what aspect of new discovery would shed light on it, and ignoring the experts like they don't count. I mean, how embarrassing! And it's such an injustice that those people are sidelined. And when they do get coverage, it's always a very, very disparaging. It's always a put down, and it's insulting, and it must be infuriating to be these people and have these buffoons. I mean, these clowns. The lunatics are running the asylum, as I say. But anyway, I just needed an informal rant. It'd be nice to spark some interest in people, and just look into it. I have the site going. It's not me. I don't discover anything. I simply go and find it. Spend a lot of time on it and put it in an easy to digest place. If you should be interested. It is fascinating if you're interested in these things, and you aren't faith-based. In other words, you don't rely on the logical fallacy of the argument from authority, where you're unable to actually process these things yourself, which is a mental barrier. And if that has been you, simply put it aside. Tell yourself you can understand these things, because it's not difficult. And just take an extra 2 seconds to think about the garbage that they're trying to sell you. I promise you'll see through it. Human beings have an amazing ability, intuitive gut feel for things, but it involves being there. You've got to be present. Just imagine your life was under threat, and you actually saw things for just a few seconds as they really were. Just imagine you could look back on your life that moment before you die, and that sense of perspective that we'll probably all get. And suddenly, all these things will just make sense, and then you'll lose it, Just pretend that you were that lucid when you first review these things again. And I promise you will kick yourself. You will kick yourself, because it's not... of course, in a few years, everybody will say, I always thought this, and I always knew that, and I always knew that black holes had magnetic fields, and not even light can escape, but these jets can escape, and Hawking radiation, and the magnetic field that goes through, it's beyond the event. I guess the magnetic field can escape. What's creating that? What gives? In about 20 years, standard model is going to look exactly like the models that I'm talking about anyway. They're going to be two of the same things. Like I said, they come as after laughing you out of court for even suggesting that there was magnetism in space, let alone electric charge movement or smooth potential drop-off in voltage. My God. No, the dark matter makes it cosmic. It's filamentary. The cosmic wave is filamentary because of dark matter. Yeah, but we fucked up the calculation for the galactic rotation and the space between stars. We go flying out into the abyss the way we had it. It's a fudge factor. We put it in there because we got it wrong by so much. It's like a patch cheat, It's not real. Especially after 80 years of looking for it, it's not needed. We can explain the rotation curve and the relative velocity of stars. We worked it out for the last 100 years on archive data on 2 out of 3 variables. It's an electromagnetic phenomenon. So there's no mystery there. So forget the dark matter. It's not invisible sorcery. It's not. Does it sound plausible to you? No. That's what I'm saying. So it's all like that, all of it, layer upon layer upon layer. Don't look at your car, don't look at your cell phone, don't marvel at technology and go, this is science. What do I know? Don't go and argue with your mechanic, because cars drive. This is all engineering. It's proven, right? Just go to the theoretical stuff. From particle physics to string theory or the cosmology, the standard model. It's all baloney, all of it. There's not a single, it's good for nothing. Maybe navigating the solar system. They can sort of, even that they mess up. They've got to constantly, but that's basically the navigators and the engineers. You know, the cosmologists are not worth a dime. And like I said, I hinted at the secret space program, the black budget one, you know, which probably is a lot better funded. You know, they do use a lot of the plasma cosmology, and a lot of these plasma cosmologists came out of like Anthony Peratt, Los Alamos, when they're doing nuclear research. So a lot of them work. It makes sense that they might transition from there, and why they've hidden it from since the days of Tesla to Alphen to Birkeland, and they've always taken the electric guys. Even though every device and electronics may be pervasive in this world, there's been something about why it might have something to do with this whole rumors of free energy or cheap energy and the competition with fossil fuels. I mean, there may be that, and it sounds like a valid motivation. But it goes further when you start dealing with the cosmology. There could be a more insidious sort of cover up going on. It could be. But it seems to me that a lot of this is just to do with nepotism and the power of institution and of corruption that comes with having an establishment that is looking to preserve the status quo and it digs a deeper and deeper hole. That's my call. You decide how you feel about things.